She thought she could destroy him on national television. His response left the entire country speechless. The phone rang at exactly 9:47 a.m. On a Tuesday morning. Marcus Thompson, CEO of Quantum Dynamics, was reviewing quarterly projections when his assistant, Angela, knocked on his door. "There's a producer from Power Talk Live on line 2. They want you as a guest this Friday." Marcus looked up from his laptop. Power Talk Live was the most watched daytime show in America, hosted by Victoria Sterling, a veteran journalist. Known for her sharp interviews and political commentary, they're doing a segment on tech innovation and minority leadership. Angela continued. Marcus had built Quantum Dynamics from nothing, a cybersecurity firm that now protected Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. They'd just landed a contract worth $150 million, beating out established giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. But Marcus knew the game. When mainstream media suddenly remembered black entrepreneurs existed, it was usually for one of two reasons: celebration or destruction. He accepted the invitation anyway. His company deserved the recognition, even if the media had an agenda. 3 days later, Marcus arrived at the Power Talk Live studios in Manhattan. The green room smelled like fresh coffee and expensive perfume. A young production assistant barely looked at him as she clipped a microphone to his lapel. "Mr. Thompson, we go live in 10 minutes, she said. Checking her watch, the monitor showed the current segment, a cooking demonstration with a celebrity chef, followed by a preview for the next hour. Coming up next, the new face of tech success, or another diversity hire controversy. Marcus clenched his jaw, so that was the angle they were taking. The studio was designed to look prestigious: dark wood panels, leather chairs, and strategic lighting that made everything appear warm yet serious. Victoria Sterling sat across from him, reviewing her notes. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that had stared down presidents and CEOs. "Marcus Thompson," she began once the cameras rolled, "CEO of Quantum Dynamics, welcome to Power Talk Live." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for having me, Victoria. Your company just secured one of the largest cybersecurity contracts in government history, $150 million, beating out some of the most established names in defense. How does it feel?" Marcus kept his expression neutral. "It feels like validation. For years of hard work, my team developed encryption technology that's simply more advanced than what our competitors were offering." Victoria smiled, but there was something calculated about it. "Now, Marcus, I have to ask the question that's on everyone's mind." She leaned forward slightly. "Your success story is remarkable, rising from the south side of Chicago, single-parent household community college, to running a multi-million-dollar company. But some industry insiders are questioning whether your recent contract win was based purely on merit, or whether certain diversity initiatives gave you an unfair advantage." Marcus had been waiting for this moment. He'd rehearsed his response, but hearing it out loud still stung. "That's an interesting question, Victoria. When SpaceX wins NASA contracts, nobody asks if Elon Musk had an unfair advantage. When Amazon gets government deals, nobody questions Jeff Bezos's merit. But when a black CEO succeeds, suddenly we need to examine the process." Victoria's smile tightened, but she pressed forward. "You have to admit, Marcus, the optics matter. There are federal programs designed to increase minority participation in government contracting. Some taxpayers wonder if their money is going to the best companies or just the most diverse ones." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his voice remaining calm. "Let me tell you about optics. Victoria, when I started Quantum Dynamics 12 years ago, I was turned down by 17 different investors, not because my technology wasn't viable, but because they couldn't see past my skin color to the solution I was offering." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Victoria shuffled her notes, clearly expecting a different response. "But Marcus, you've benefited from programs like the Small Business Administration's 8A certification, which is specifically for disadvantaged businesses. Isn't that a form of special treatment?" Marcus chuckled softly. "You know, what's special treatment, Victoria? Having your father's golf buddy invest in your startup, having your college roommate introduce you to venture capitalists, having a trust fund to fall back on when your first company fails." He looked directly into the camera. "Those are advantages most black entrepreneurs never get. What I had was the ADA program, which helped level a playing field that was never leveled to begin." With Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "But let's talk numbers," she said, reaching For a different angle, your company's revenue grew 400% in the past 2 years. That's unprecedented growth. Some analysts suggest that rapid expansion in minority-owned businesses isn't always sustainable, that it's driven more by social pressure than sound business practices. Marcus felt his patience wearing thin, but his voice remained steady. Social pressure. He repeated, Victoria, my company's encryption software is currently protecting the financial data of 12 major banks. Our cybersecurity protocols prevented over 200 attempted data breaches last year. Our client retention rate is 98%. Those aren't social pressure metrics, those are results. The tension in the studio was palpable. Victoria was losing control of the narrative. She'd expected Marcus to be defensive, apologetic. Instead, he was dismantling her arguments piece by piece. But surely you understand the concerns some people have. Victoria tried again. When government contracts are awarded, there needs to be transparency about the selection process. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I absolutely agree with transparency, Victoria, so let's be transparent about something else. When my white competitors lose a contract, they call their lawyers, their lobbyists, their congressmen. When I win a contract, fairly, people like you question whether I deserved it. The camera operators exchanged glances. They knew they were capturing something significant. Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Marcus, I'm not trying to diminish your achievements, but we have to acknowledge that the business landscape has changed dramatically for minority entrepreneurs in recent years. Marcus stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact with Victoria. You're right. It has changed, he said, his voice carrying throughout the studio. 20 years ago, I would have been laughed out of boardrooms. Today, I get invited to interviews where I'm questioned about whether I deserve my success. That's progress, I guess. A murmur rippled through the studio audience. Victoria looked toward the control room, but the producers weren't cutting to commercial. This was gold television. Marcus remained standing. You want to talk about the changing landscape, Victoria? Let's talk about it when I walk into a room full of potential clients. I'm not just representing my company, I'm representing every Black entrepreneur who might walk into that room. After me, I have to be perfect, because one mistake doesn't just hurt me. It reinforces every stereotype about why people who look like me shouldn't be in positions of leadership. The studio fell silent. Victoria tried to regain control. But Marcus, doesn't that pressure make you stronger, make your work better? Marcus shook his head slowly. It shouldn't have to, Victoria. White entrepreneurs get to be human. They get to make mistakes, learn from them, and try again. Black entrepreneurs have to be superhuman just to be considered competent. He looked directly into the camera, addressing the audience at home. I know some of you are watching this thinking, here we go, another successful Black man playing the victim card. But I want you to ask yourself something. When was the last time you saw a mediocre Black CEO fail upward the way mediocre white executives do? Regularly, the silence in the studio was deafening. Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus wasn't finished. You see, when white executives fail, they get golden parachutes, consulting deals, book contracts. When Black executives fail, it becomes evidence that diversity hiring doesn't work, that we were never qualified in the first place. He paused, letting his words sink in. That's the real difference, Victoria, not opportunity pressure. The pressure to be perfect every single day, because imperfection isn't just personal failure, it's ammunition for everyone who never wanted us in these positions anyway. Victoria looked flustered for the first time in her career. Marcus, I think you're being somewhat dramatic. Dramatic? He repeated. Victoria, my company's cybersecurity software is protecting critical infrastructure across this country. Right now, if that software fails, people could die, cities could go dark, financial systems could collapse. But you brought me on this show to question whether I deserved the contract to build it. Tell me what's dramatic about that. The control room was scrambling, producers whispering frantically into their headsets. This wasn't the interview they'd planned. Marcus sat back down, his composure never wavering. You know what the real tragedy is, Victoria? It's not that successful Black entrepreneurs face additional scrutiny. That's nothing new. The tragedy is that brilliant Black minds are still being overlooked because investors, venture capitalists, and corporate executives can't see past their biases to recognize innovation. He gestured toward the camera. For every Marcus Thompson who makes it, there are dozens of black entrepreneurs with game-changing ideas who never get the chance because they don't fit the stereotype of what success looks like. Victoria tried one last time, but surely, you'd agree that merit should be the only factor in business decisions? Absolutely. Marcus replied, merit should be the only factor, but let's define merit. Victoria, is it merit when a Stanford graduate gets seed funding because their professor knows an investor? Or is that networking? Is it merit when a startup gets acquired by their founder's former roommate? Or is that connection? Is it merit when a company gets a government contract because the CEO plays golf with a congressman? Or is that influence? He leaned forward. When you figure out how to remove networking connections and influence from business success, then we can have a conversation about pure merit. Until then, don't question whether I deserve my success. Question why it took so long for someone like me to get the opportunity to earn it. The studio erupted in applause. Victoria looked stunned. Marcus stood up again, this time removing his microphone. I think we're done here, he said. Calmly, as he walked off the set, the camera followed him until he disappeared into the wings. Within an hour, the clip was everywhere. Social media exploded with reactions. Marcus Thompson just delivered the most powerful response I've ever heard. Finally, someone said what needed to be said. This man just schooled the entire system on live TV, but the backlash was swift and brutal. Another angry black man playing victim. Nothing he said was groundbreaking, just more of the same complaints. Successful people don't make excuses. They make money. The clip hit 10 million views in 6 hours. Cable news networks picked up the story. Politicians weighed in. And Marcus found himself at the center of a national debate he never wanted but desperately needed to happen. Back at Quantum Dynamics, Marcus sat in his office staring out at the Chicago skyline. Angela knocked on his door. The phone hasn't stopped ringing, she said. Requests for interviews, speaking engagements, book deals. Everyone wants to talk to you. Marcus rubbed his temples. I never wanted to be a spokesperson, Angela. I just wanted to run my company. She sat down across from him. Well, you are running your company and doing it brilliantly, but maybe that's exactly why your voice matters. Maybe other entrepreneurs need to hear what you said today. Marcus thought about the young black students who might be watching that clip, the ones who were told they weren't smart enough, good enough, ready enough. Maybe Victoria Sterling thought she was destroying him, but instead she'd given him a platform to speak truth to power. And sometimes that's exactly what the world needs to hear. So what do you think? Should success speak for itself, or do successful people have an obligation to speak up for those still fighting for their chance? Let us know in the comments, and if you believe more voices like Marcus Thompson's need to be heard, subscribe